If you already own silver, this is the hardest decision in the entire trade. Because this is where most people get it wrong. You bought it before the run, or during it. And now you're watching the chart, asking yourself the same question everyone in your position is asking. Do I add more here? After a 147% run last year, after the 121 high in January, after the pullback to where we are now. Is this still early? Or is the trade over? I'm going to give you the honest answer. Not the Moon Boy version, not the bear version, the version that holds up when you look at it carefully. Because silver right now is the trade for people who already believed. And the trade for people who already believed is the trade nobody else can size for you. If you're one of them, the next 11 minutes are about whether your belief still holds. Silver closed yesterday around $66, down from the January high, up roughly 4 times from where it sat for most of the 2010s. You're up big, but not as big as you were. The pullback is real. The trend is intact. Both can be true at once. The question isn't whether silver had a good run. It did. The question is whether the conditions that produced it are still in place. I think they are. Let me show you why. There are 3 reasons to believe silver goes higher: history, the supply deficit, and the gold-silver ratio. 3 different kinds of evidence, all pointing in the same direction. Let me start with history, because it's the reason most people miss, and it's the one that matters most for the question you're asking. Silver has been here before, not at this price, at this setup. A structural supply deficit, a run that made the easy money look already made, a pullback that made holders wonder if the trade was over. It happened in the 1970s. It happened again in the mid-2000s. And in both cases, the people who looked at the chart and said, "The run is over, I missed it," were wrong. Were wrong. The 1970s cycle ran silver from around $2 to around $6 in the early part of the decade. Pullback. Holders wondered if it was over. By 1980, silver hit $49. The proximate trigger for that final move was the Hunt brothers trying to corner the market. That part doesn't repeat. You can't corner silver today. The market is too big. The regulators are watching. But the Hunt brothers didn't create the deficit. They exploited one that already existed. Flat supply, growing demand, a market that had forgotten silver was money. The corner is the part you can't repeat. The setup that made the corner possible is the part you can. The mid-2000s cycle is cleaner. Silver ran from around $5 to around $15. Pullback. Holders wondered if it was over. By 2011, silver hit $49 again. Now here's where I want you to slow down with me, because the 2008 comparison is the one that actually matters for the question you're asking right now. In 2008, the proximate trigger was the financial crisis and the monetary response that followed. Zero rates, quantitative easing, a balance sheet expansion that was unprecedented at the time. That created the environment that drove silver from $9 in late 2008 to $49 in 2011, a 5-bagger in under 3 years. Now look at where we are today. The Fed's balance sheet is roughly 3 times larger than it was when the 2011 silver high was set. Real rates have been negative for most of the last 5 years. Sovereign debt loads across the developed world are at levels that would have been called crisis numbers in 2008. The monetary backdrop that drove the 2011 silver high isn't a memory. It's the floor. The thing that was extraordinary then is the baseline now. That doesn't mean silver retraces the 2008 to 2011 move on the same timeline. It might be slower. It might be faster. The catalyst will be its own thing. But the environment that made the 2011 high possible is more present today, not less. Here's the pattern across both cycles. In both, a structural deficit set up the conditions. A catalyst eventually triggered the resolution. And the run that made everyone think the trade was over turned out to be the middle of the move, not the end. I don't know what this cycle's catalyst is. Neither does anyone else, honestly, but the structural setup is what makes catalysts matter, and the structural setup is in place. That's reason one. History says the viral run isn't the end of the move, it's the middle. The trade for people who already believed is the trade nobody else can size for you. But the history says the people who already believed are positioned correctly. Reason two is the deficit itself, the thing the historical pattern is rhyming with. According to Silver Institute data, mining supply has been roughly flat for a decade. Industrial demand has grown 35% over the same period, driven primarily by solar installation growth. That gap is the deficit, and the deficit is structural, not cyclical. The cyclical deficit gets resolved by higher prices bringing on supply. The structural one doesn't. Because mining supply is the hardest commodity supply in the world to bring online. Permits take a decade, capital costs are punishing, ore grades are declining everywhere. Even if every miner on the planet decided today to maximize silver production, new supply doesn't show up for years. Meanwhile, demand keeps growing. Solar, electronics, EVs, medical. The deficit doesn't close, it widens, and markets don't ignore that forever. That's reason two. Reason three is the gold-silver ratio. The ratio right now is around 75, the long-term average is closer to 60. This is what has to be true if two patterns that have held for decades continue to hold. If gold stays exactly where it is and the ratio just mean reverts to its long-term average, silver goes to around $82. If gold goes higher, which most serious gold analysts think it does, silver goes meaningfully higher than that. This isn't a prediction, it's a conditional claim about pattern persistence. Silver doesn't need a new story to move higher, it just needs the existing patterns to keep holding. History, supply deficit, gold-silver ratio, three reasons, three different kinds of evidence. All pointing in the same direction. I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't give the bear case a fair hearing. The strongest bear argument is that the deficit is already priced in. That the 147% run was the market figuring out what we just walked through. That's a serious argument, and it might be partially right. But here's what would have to be true for it to be fully right. Industrial demand growth would have to decelerate sharply. Solar would have to slow down or find a silver substitute. The historical pattern of multi-year deficit resolutions would have to break for the first time, and the gold-silver ratio would have to stay elevated. Each of those could happen. All four happening at once is the scenario you'd need for current silver prices to be the top. I don't think that's the most likely scenario, but I want you to know it exists, and I want you to know what would have to break for the bull case to break with it. Here's how I'd frame what happens next. Four scenarios, with rough probabilities. Base case, the structural drivers persist, the deficit widens, the ratio partially mean reverts, silver reaches $90 to $110 by end of 2027, around 50% probability. Bull case, gold keeps going, the ratio fully mean reverts, industrial demand accelerates, silver reaches $140 or higher, around 25%. Tail case, a monetary regime shift, silver as a serious monetary asset again, $200 or more is on the table, maybe 10%, not zero, and the bear case I just walked through. Silver pulls back to $60 or lower and stays there, around 15%. Those probabilities add to 100. That's deliberate. I'm not giving you a ceiling without a floor. The downside is real. The upside is also real. Now run the math. 50% chance of $100, 25% chance of $140, 10% chance of $200, 15% chance of $60. The probability-weighted expected value is around 114. From $66 today, that's a 73% expected return over the next 2 to 4 years. That's not the bull case, that's the weighted case, the one that already includes the bear scenario at 15%. That's what the numbers actually claim. Now let me talk about what to do with it. The question you came here with wasn't whether silver is going higher. You already believed that. The question was whether to add. I can't tell you how much. That's not what this video is. The trade for people who already believed is the trade nobody else can size for you. But I can give you the decision rule. 3 things determine the right add: how concentrated you already are, how much of the thesis you actually believe, and how long you can hold without needing the money. Here's how they combine. If all 3 point toward adding, you're not over-concentrated. You believe all 3 reasons and your horizon is multi-year. The add is the size that lets you sleep through a 30% drawdown. Without changing your mind, if any one of them points the other way, You're already concentrated, or you only believe one of the three reasons, or your horizon is shorter than 2 years. The add is roughly half of that. If two of them point the other way, you don't add, you hold what you have. That's the rule: concentration, conviction, horizon, combined into a single decision, not three separate ones. Discipline beats conviction when conviction and discipline disagree. I want to close with the thing I think most silver content gets wrong. Most of the videos you've watched on this are trying to convince you, trying to get you off the fence, trying to make the case to someone who doesn't already believe. That's not what this video is. You already believed. You already own. The question isn't conversion. The question is conviction. Whether the thing you believed when you bought is still true today. The honest answer is yes. The thesis is intact. The structural drivers haven't changed. The historical pattern says the run-up didn't break the case. It confirmed it. Silver has done this before. Run hard, pull back, make holders wonder if the trade is over, then resolve at prices the holders couldn't imagine at the moment they were wondering. If you'd never owned silver, I'd tell you to think carefully, to size small, to respect the volatility. But you're not that person. You're someone who already saw what was coming. Bought before most people did, and watched the thesis start to play out. For you, this isn't a new bet. It's an old one that's still working. The trade for people who already believed is the trade nobody else can size for you. But the math says the position is correct. The history says the move isn't over. And the conviction that got you in is the same conviction that should keep you in. Add carefully. Add with a framework. Add with a time horizon you can defend. But don't talk yourself out of the position you got right the first time. If this resonated, I want to know your version of it. When did you first buy silver? What was the thesis you bought on? Does it still hold for you today? The comments on this one are where the real conversation happens. I read every one.